We're filming this on Thursday before we get a big ice storm here in North Carolina. We're, as my son said, we're the only place in the world it can be 23 degrees and it be icing instead of snowing. This is pretty typical event here for North Carolina and other areas in the country too that get these little warm part of the atmosphere where it turns your snow event into ice. A lot of you in the Northeast are going to get a heavy snowstorm. So we thought we'd shoot a video just based on before, during, and after, one of these events, how to deal with them in the garden, how to think about covering, not covering, staking and pruning and all those kinds of things that you might think about around one of these events. Weirdly here though in North Carolina, like I say, it can be well below freezing and us get ice instead of snow. And the reason for that is in order to have snow, you have to have the entire atmosphere from the top to the bottom be below freezing. And then the snow just falls all the way through it to the ground. We tend in the Southeast to get these little warm wedges introduced in the atmosphere in some level of the atmosphere. If it's a narrow little band, we get sleet. Sleet is okay. Sleet, I don't want to be driving on sleet, and I'm certainly going to stay home during sleet. But sleet, little frozen pellets of water, hit your plants and fall to the ground mostly. So almost all of that material will make it to the ground and not actually cause our plants any problems. It'll be the same kind of insulator that snow would be. So rooting for sleet, okay, over freezing rain. Freezing rain, if you get a larger band of warm air in that little, in the layers going up to the clouds, then it doesn't have time to completely refreeze back into sleet, and it freezes upon contact on the ground or your plants or whatever. That's freezing rain, and freezing rain is bad, especially when you're in a city called the City of Oaks, which is what Raleigh is called. And every power line is above ground in our area, and you have those oaks overhanging it. Likely we're going to have some power outages here if we get a lot of freezing rain, but that's basically how those little layers in there work, and it determines what you're going to actually get. We've had significant icing events here in Raleigh, so I've got quite a bit of experience with it over time. They're not particularly kind to your to the plants. They're not kind to electricity and all those kinds of things. Leading up to an event like this, whether it's snow or ice or whatever it is, if you've been, I get a lot of questions on the channel. Should I prune this limb off? Should I prune that limb off? This might be the opportunity to actually walk around the garden, and if you have something that you think is going to potentially splay open during an event like this, and I'll show you one other type of plant after I show you this Bihu Japanese maple here. If you think there's a possibility that this limb is eventually going to be taken off the plant anyway, and this ice or snow or whatever event it is could bend it down and crack it completely off, it might be a good idea just to go ahead and take that limb off leading up to it. Not everybody's going to have that kind of thing, but this Bihu Japanese maple I think would be a great example of that. I don't necessarily want this to be too trunked in the future. These are pretty strong. The plant doesn't have leaves on it, so I don't think it's going to cause me any problems. But if I was eventually going to take this lower branch off right here, I might do it today. Just leading up to this ice event, because again, that's the type of thing, if ice takes it off, it's going to crack the plant all the way to the bottom, potentially below the graft on that Japanese maple. If I take it off, I can take it off clean, and then it's a non-event, and then I can go ahead and stake. The other thing I might do here is, this is a flimsy little stake, right? I might go ahead, if I was going to take that limb off, and go ahead and put a more substantial stake on it and make sure that this plant wasn't going to be in jeopardy of, there's no way that little tiny stake that was originally on this plant, which I should have already cut off by the way anyway. It's also a good time to look around and make sure you don't have things that are cutting into your plants. And I'm noticing that right now, taking my own advice. I'll probably cut that off, maybe stake this a little bit firmer up, and prevent any potential damage from happening. You may have some plants that have a tendency to kind of splay open. Sky pencil hollies are a great example of that. There's a lot of plants that might do this, conifers and others. This might be an opportunity. I don't do a lot of covering, and I'll talk about that ice storms or snowstorms like this, but in this particular case, I could take a piece of burlap, or a piece of twine, and start down here at the bottom and actually tie this thing together like this. That would prevent this from opening up during the storm. So these definitely have a potential for that. Unfortunately, Some of the faster growing things can be super vulnerable. Not there's anything you can do about what I'm about to say, but you know, in the past, Bradford pears became a big problem during ice storms. It's really what exposed them. We sold so many Bradford pears. They've become terribly invasive trees in the wild, but before we knew any of that, ice storms just completely destroyed them. Some of these faster growing plants, Leyland cypress, super vulnerable to issues. Most conifers are built really well for snow and ice. Most of them reside in places around the world where you get heavy snow and ice, and the limbs are perfect for it. We've selectively bred some of these things like green giants and Leyland cypress and emerald arborvitae and others to be really full and really tight habits and fast growing. You know, we selected them for fast growing. Unfortunately, some of those can become slightly vulnerable, you know, when they don't have the branching separated, you know, to hold that snow. One thing I'll say, I think people will be tempted to cover lots of things in the garden, and I'll talk a little bit more about covering after the event. After the event's where I want to do most of my covering. You can cover things like this Pittosporum. So this is a marginal plant in my area in extremely low temperatures. And this could probably be covered because of the shape of it, because of the, you know, because it's just a low doming plant like this. But I don't want to cover anything that can absolutely, you know, can be crushed by it. So that Loropetalum right there is more of a spiky plant. If I cover that thing, it's just going to flatten it down. It's also another one of those fast growing plants that has weak wood, you know, so I know that about that plant. That thing can absolutely be crushed. Some of these low doming things, if I was going to cover something and keep it covered during an event, so if I was leading into snow or ice event and I was going to cover some things, you need to have them packed extremely close together. So let's say you have a big group of plants that you purchased in the past and you want to keep them covered through that event, and then that snow or ice layer will really lock them in place and keep them warmer during what is going to be extremely cold on the other side of the event. You need to have them super close together. Okay, if you have your containers far apart underneath the blanket, each one of those plants, that cover is going to shape to each of those plants and it's going to break them apart. So what we did in the nursery is we put everything super tight together. We put the taller things in the middle and the lower things on the edge so that the cover just formed to that thing. If we put the small things in the middle and the tall things on the edge, then the cover weights down in the middle and it breaks the things on the edge of your big group. But it's best if you're going to think about covering something, you got lots of containers or whatever and you want to cover them, put them all really super tight together, tall things in the middle, small things on the edge, and throw some sort of frost protection blanket or sheet or whatever you want to over the top of them. I would recommend, though, the things in your garden that you're going to protect after the storm, to do it after the storm and not during, not before the event. I think that's the best case scenario, is to keep that weight. The ice and the snow insulates your plants during the event. It's after the event that the temperatures become really dangerous, and then I would cover. I talked about that Bihu Japanese maple over there, maybe making a prune on it or maybe restaking it. Those deciduous plants like that are the least of my concern. They don't have as much surface area to collect ice on, you know, or snow loads on, you know, to break apart. And again, a lot of our low doming plants are just kind of built structurally perfect, you know, to take a fairly good load. It's these leafy evergreens and again, conifers that have been super over pruned into really tight conical shapes and that kind of thing that can be destroyed by these types of events. What we'll get on something like this Alyssium, which, you know, didn't evolve with heavy ice and snow loads down here in the southeast, you know, when this thing starts to get weight on it, it's really going to start to pull down. And I mean, really, this thing will probably be bent completely and totally out of shape here. If it's ice, I can't do anything about it. I think you're going to be tempted. If I come out here and this thing's covered in ice and I go start shaking it, it will break. That's my experience, especially in really low temperatures. With snow, I mean, I could come out here and, you know, I could probably use a blower on it, but if it was light and fluffy snow, or I can use a light broom. You know, I've done that before. I've broomed off, you know, plants that had heavy snow loads on them. There are a lot of different ways that you can deal with snow by knocking some of the weight off of it. You know, just tapping it even, you can knock some of the snow off of it. Ice is just different. I just have to wait. I'm going to take a few limb losses in ice. The main thing is don't get out there and be, It's dangerous, you know, outside in an ice event. So, you know, probably you don't want to go get hurt in the process of trying to save a plant. Most of these plants are durable, and even if something big breaks off of this plant, you're better off not getting hurt trying to do something about that. I also don't use any kind of de-icer in the garden, you know, maybe on sidewalks or driveways or whatever, but keep in mind those salts can have long-term negative consequences on a lot of these plants. There are some plants out here, and we probably do at some point need to do a salt tolerant video, because I do know a lot of the plants that are salt tolerant that are in the garden that will tolerate that a little more, but the vast majority of these plants don't want a lot of salt added to them over time. One other thing I didn't mention leading into an event like this is to make sure your containers are watered. Make sure there is. We've been extremely dry. We did get an all-day rain the other day, a very light rain, but all-day rain the other day. So all my containers are wet going into this. Most of the plants are pretty wet. I moved a shrub in a video the other day on how to move a shrub, and when I dug the hole for where it was going, it was actually a little dry down at the bottom of it, even after a day of rain, you know, this far down in the soil. So it is pretty dry right now, so keep that in mind, that these plants, it's when you layer stresses, okay? Maybe you planted something in the fall, okay, and then it took a little bit of initial freeze damage on some new growth, okay? Then it was a little drier than it probably wanted to be, because who in the heck is thinking about watering, you know, during December? I mean, we're thinking about holiday seasons and all kinds of things, and we've seen things get dry during that. And then you have a snow or ice event followed by extremely cold temperatures. Those are the kinds of stresses on top of stresses on top of stresses that end up causing problems in the garden. One thing that could happen during an event is you could take some sort of small tree or upright plant, and it could pull it over enough that the roots end up exposed on them. As soon as possible, those things probably need to be staked back up in some way and the roots recovered on them, because those roots being exposed to the air temperature. Roots cannot take the same cold temperatures that the above ground parts of the plants can. And we kind of know where the temperatures are where roots can be damaged. That's why you'll see container nurseries in the north having plastic, almost everything inside plastic hoop houses, because the roots inside those containers hit a certain temperature, they just die. On, you know, various plants have various different temperatures that will kill them. So we don't want roots exposed in the garden, and you can restake those things. The other thing about being patient after the event is a lot of these plants can just be cut back to the ground. I mean, amazing amount of them. So sometime later in the spring, you know, as it gets warmer and moderates, if you're looking at something that just seems completely destroyed, like a wax myrtle, especially wax myrtles, people that live in eastern North Carolina that have tons of wax myrtles in their gardens, and in South Carolina, wax myrtles just get torn apart in these ice storms. The things can be cut basically a third, you know, down to a third, or even closer to the ground, and they'll come back from that. They have a big root system on them, so keep in mind that your older, mature plants that get a little bit of, you know, break apart damage up at the top, after you prune them, they're going to recover super fast because they have a big giant root system to support that. After the event, you know, you really just need to let time pass for most things, let the snow and ice melt off of things, and then evaluate them later. If significant pruning needs to be done on things because they got damaged, I would wait probably until a little later in the winter. Again, we're not trying to layer stresses on top of stresses on top of stresses. Even a raggedy limb that's still attached to the plant is able to capture the sun's energy and maybe give some energy into those roots on that plant and help it recover, even if it's something you're going to take off later. I just leave it alone until later in the winter, probably, on most things, you know, however they're damaged, unless it's going to take additional damage with another event, and at that point you would cut it off. What happens in the other side of these types of events, where we get significant snowfall from where we are, you know, from, let's say, South Carolina all the way into the Northeast, is we get what's called the white ball effect, where everything is covered in snow. Normally, when cold air masses move out of the middle of the country, like out of Wisconsin or whatever, across the country, the air moderates as it moves towards us, obviously, and it's warmer here than it is up there, but that's how that works. When we have this white ball effect where everything is covered in snow, everything's covered in ice, those air temperatures cannot moderate before they get here. And so they're predicting 11 degrees for us in Raleigh on Monday night. those are the nights in my 40 years in this business where we got into single digits or 0 degrees. Okay, I don't know what it will be. It could be 18. I don't think they have any way of predicting that particular temperature. So my point here being is we have no idea post-event how cold it will actually be. If you have snow in your area and everything's covered in a blanket of snow, I don't think you're going to have any issues. But if you have exposed plants above the ground that are barely hardy in your area, that's going to be the night that I'm going to cover. My experience in this business, I'll tell Steph over and over and over again, this one's no big deal. This one's no big deal. I've seen it. This is the one that's actually the big deal, because again, on the other side of these events is where the real cold happens, where cold air just moves across it without moderating at all. And the only time I've ever seen sub-zero temperatures in our area are based on these post-snow or ice events right after them. So likely on Monday, I'm going to do some covering in this garden. What I don't want to do is cover beforehand or have the covers outside during the event. I've made that mistake at my nursery before, where we took the covers off because we were going to get a heavy snow event, and I was worried about the cover, the weight of the snow damaging the plants underneath them. But now I had my covers laying beside the plants, and then they got locked into ice, and I wasn't able to put my covers back on after the event when the real cold got there. So be careful with that. Have your covers in the garage. And when I say covers, I'm talking about sheets and pillowcases and what else? Shade cloth covers and any kind of fabric cover that you can come up with. If you have marginal plants or plants that were planted in the fall that have already taken a little bit of damage, this is the time. As I've never really said, normally I'm very casual about how I treat these events, but I'm telling you, after this, we're probably going to get a single digit temperature here in Raleigh. And I've got a lot of zone 8 to 10 things in this garden. My zone 7, zone 6 things that have been in the ground for 4 or 5 years, probably not going to be an issue. But the things that are marginally hardy in this garden that are leafy evergreens, I'm going to cover them on Monday in all likelihood. I'm going to monitor it between now and then, not cover for no reason. But I think if they're predicting anything in the teens, that potentially could go 5-10 degrees colder than that here is my experience. The prediction model doesn't work as well when everything's covered in ice and temperatures drop down. I've seen one year we had crepe myrtles basically killed to the snow level here in the Raleigh area. Mature crepe myrtles killed like that to the snow level at post event. And that's when we had a sub-zero Fahrenheit temperature. So don't do a whole lot beforehand other than making sure some crazy limb is taking off something. Don't do anything during the event to hurt yourself. Be super careful of power lines. I expect power lines to be down here in the neighborhood potentially on an event like this. Make sure you stay well away from those. That's the most dangerous thing in this entire event is down power lines in people's yard. I came from a neighborhood where everything was underground, and now I'm in a neighborhood where everything's exposed under large oaks, that are 80 years old and dropping limbs constantly. So stay away from those things. Stay safe. And then as soon as you can get out there before that first night after one of these events and get things protected, that's when you do it. So thank you guys so much for following along with the channel, and good luck and stay safe. Thanks for watching.